Hey guys, I am here and I have some lovely people with me. Today is all about my birthing center birth story and introducing you all to our beautiful son and her grandson, Garrison. So, let's get started. Alright, this is my mom, and I couldn't tell the story without her because I wouldn't have been able to make it if I didn't have her here. So she's going to be on the video and she's going to interject and give you her perspective of how the whole thing went. So I went into labor starting Friday, August 23rd. Now my due date was August 24th. I went into labor. We were all sitting around watching Woman with the Dragon Tattoo, and he had fallen asleep on the couch. Rough day, or long day, not a rough day. And finally got up and went to bed, and my mom and I were just watching a movie. But then I start realizing these Braxton Hicks are really close together and like really intense. But I was like, I'm just gonna entertain myself and I'm gonna start counting my contractions. So I have a counter on my phone and I started, you know, timing the contractions. Well, they were about 2.5 minutes apart. So if I went from start to finish, maybe about 4 minutes, 5 minutes apart. But they weren't painful. So, you know, I looked at my mom and I was like, I think I'm gonna go into labor. I was like, let's go to sleep. So I need my energy so that, you know, when I have painful contractions, I'll wake us all up and we'll go from there. So we went to bed, and around 2 o'clock for me, I probably tried to stay strong, but couldn't. Around 2:15, I had to wake my husband up, and he was very groggy and very tired, but he got up, and I was like, I'm in labor. I've been in labor since yesterday, and you know, let's just try to weigh out as much as we can here at home. So at this point, we didn't even call the midwives. You know, he ran me a bath. I just kind of relaxed in the bath and just, you know, going through the motions of early stage of labor. And
I'm gonna tell you this. So I had not been sleeping well earlier in the week. I am a sleep talker, sleepwalker, and every twitch and move that Maria would make, I think I jumped up one night and
it's like, is it time?
Is it time or something? But I'll tell you this, when you actually get there, at least from my experience, all of the stuff that you read, all of the stuff that you prepare for, all the videos, it like goes all out of the windows, because all you can focus on is my wife is looking at me with big eyes and pain on her face, and it's like, what do you do? Like, how do I help? How do I fix it? And it's not something that you can fix.
No, it's not. You just have to go through it. So it gets to about 4. We call
3:30. No. 4:30.
We call the midwife, and at this time it's just my husband and I are up. My mom is still asleep, and of course midwives, they want to hear your voice, hear your tone, hear how you're handling the contractions. I was able to breathe through the contractions. They were painful, but they weren't like, you know, crippling. So we just decided to stay home, and she said to call her back in how many hours? 2?
Call her back around. We called her back around 6:30.
So we called her back, and at that point, I was like into the groaning grunt of getting through these contractions. I tried to wake my mom up several times, but she was sleeping good. And finally, she got up, and when she got up, she was just kind of all over getting her stuff together, getting ready. She really didn't have much time at this point because the midwife told us to come on in at 7. So we met her at the birthing center at 7. So we get to the birthing center, we get set up in our room, and
can I put a plug in real quick?
Yeah.
Having your birthing bag ready, having all that stuff ready, is a lifesaver, because literally it only took us, like, mom got her stuff together real quick, I grabbed the bag, grabbed the little things that we needed, we were gone. And this is coming from like Mr. Non-Plan, live in the moment on stuff like that. So that was huge. That was huge.
Thanks.
And by the way, there's a birthing bag video as well. Back to regular programming.
So we get to the birthing center, and you know the pain is getting intense, and she checks my cervix, and I had only dilated 2 centimeters. So I'm like, whew.
And your waters hadn't broken yet.
No, my water hadn't broke, and I had only dilated 2 centimeters. So it was just kind of like, we'll even count from laboring when the pain started at 2 to 7, I only dilated 2 centimeters. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I can do this. And my husband just looked me in my eyes and said, you can do it.
Now remember if you go back and look at all of our videos, and you guys don't get to see all the little private conversations that we have, and starting off her choice for delivering naturally without any pain medication. I just wanted to remind her what she committed to, and not lock her into that, but just mention that if you go toward the option of going straight to the hospital, here's what it means, and kind of let her make the decision from there. That was the first kind of Maria and Bo and Mom huddle.
Yeah. So
it was quite exciting. Once we got to the birthing center, we got the birthing bullet. And so we started doing the different exercises so Maria could actually get relaxed, different positions, start the massaging of her lower back and helping her with all her different exercises. We had the birthing CD on, which was really nice, and then we put on some classical music, which was awesome. So I would say that Maria was going through a lot. By the time she was checked again,
I was admitted. I was 3 centimeters, so she went ahead and admitted me. I was officially on around 10. Around 10, I was officially admitted. So I was ready to go ahead and be into active labor. Well, I was already in active labor, but they admitted me. Just like if you went to the hospital too early, they're not going to admit you unless you're 3 or 4 centimeters. So she went ahead and admitted me. Now, I tried my best just to keep going and going and going. And so I labored in the one room. And my favorite laboring position was on all fours, leaning over this bullet, which is like a yoga ball, but it's shaped like a pill. It's shaped like a pill. So I had no IVs. I had no anything. So it was up to me to try to keep my fluids up, snack, things like that, as well as constantly going through the discomfort and pain. So I don't know how far dilated I was before I got into the birthing tub.
About 6 centimeters.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
The birthing tub is known as the natural childbirthing epidural. So
it was awesome. I stayed in there, and then my midwife was concerned that it could slow me down. So she kind of just watched me and she checked me again, and I had dilated to 7. So that was good, and that was at 7 p.m. So the whole day I'm now at 7 centimeters and it's 7 p.m. She had to go somewhere, so another nurse stepped in for her until like around midnight. From 7 to midnight, I'm contracting, you know, my contractions are coming. They've slowed down, but they're coming, and I hadn't really dilated any further, and my water still has not broken. So I'm got a full membrane. My water is intact, and I'm just dilating. So basically, I did have a bloody show. My mucus plug or whatever did come out. So I'm still at 7 centimeters. So it's about 1, and I'm laboring on the toilet now. And all of a sudden I feel something like down there, and I'm like, you guys, something's coming out of me. And my husband is looking, and I'm like touching it, and it was my bag, my sack, my water sack was like coming out of me. And so the midwife suggested, and she has suggested prior, that maybe we should go ahead and rupture your membrane, which is your water, your amniotic fluid, to speed up the last 3 to 4 centimeters that you need to go before you can go into labor. Something that she really didn't stress us on was the fact that my son hadn't really dropped down to give birth. So he was like in the most furthest position to give birth possible. So
to break that down, you like the pelvic, you've got a +1, which is where Garrison was at. You have a 0, a -1, and then like a -2, and I think a -3. So he was at the farthest of the measurable positions of being dropped and non-dropped.
Okay, so he hadn't even dropped in to come into the birthing position or any. He was in birthing position, but he hadn't dropped down into the canal. So here I am. My bag is. We're now getting to rupture my bag. So we rupture my bag, and all I remember seeing is my mom's face, and she just looked really concerned. So
yes, at that point I was concerned because we knew that things were getting a little stressful there. The baby had went into the meconium in his in the water, and I was very concerned. I had to walk out the room for a second, but then when I came back, I was saying,
well, the midwife then said to us, "There's meconium in your fluid, and you will have to go to the hospital within an hour if nothing else proceeds." So I decided.
So real quick, meconium, guys, is baby poop basically. So whenever you have like distress to the infant or to your child inside the womb, the baby's may poop inside the womb.
So it's a sign.
It's a sign. So when you see that type of discolored mucus, especially at a birthing center, you're in a position like Maria said where you got about an hour, and we had to huddle up. I think I was using the restroom.
So when he came back from the bathroom, I was still, at this point I had gotten up from the bed, and now I'm back on the toilet laboring. And I had already kind of made up my mind as soon as she said that I had an hour. It was just kind of like, I've already been laboring for 26 hours. I really don't need another hour to wait here and see if he's gonna come. I would like to go to the hospital. So when my husband came in, I told him, and everybody was on the same page. So she went ahead and called the ambulance, which it happens.
It's just, they call it a transfer.
Yeah, it's just a transfer. I get to the hospital, and I get admitted, and as soon as I get there, they hook up the monitors to monitor the baby's heart rate, my contractions. They get me set up for an epidural, and after that was done, the doctor came back in and explained that they're gonna have to put me on Pitocin. So I went from not wanting any of that stuff to now I'm getting an epidural. I'm gonna have to get Pitocin. And you know, you just gotta change your mindset. It's the best thing for my baby. So at this point, whatever it takes for me to give birth and have a healthy baby, I'm ready to do. So they start my Pitocin drip, and every time I would have a contraction at this point with Pitocin in my system, my son would go into distress, like drop drastically. So they had started me on a very slow drip just to kind of kickstart my contractions back up, because they had started to slow down to like 12 minutes apart. And at that rate, I never would have dilated. So they were just trying to kickstart them back up so I can finish giving birth. Well, I have an epidural now. I can't walk myself back into labor. My son, he doesn't seem to like Pitocin, which I thought was so awesome at that point. So it was just kind of like, okay, now what? So the doctor comes back. Maybe I slept at this time. It's probably like 6, 7 in the morning. We got to the hospital at 3
o'clock,
3 a.m. And so the doctor's coming back in around 6, and she's like, well, you're not really changing, you're not dilating. We can't give you Pitocin. Every time you have a contraction with Pitocin, the baby's in distress. If I just contracted on my own, he didn't distress. So it was just kind of like one of those things where it was just like, we're at a crossroad and you've been laboring for over, 30 hours at this point. Let's have a cesarean. You're gonna need a cesarean. So it was just kind of like, okay, whatever, that's fine. So they prep me, get me back to the operating table. And it doesn't hit me that I'm about to go through major surgery here. And at first my husband isn't back there with me, so it's just kind of like, I freak out. Like, I didn't like scream or anything, but I start crying because I worked so hard to make it through this natural childbirth, and I couldn't do it. So
and I remember telling my wife, so for me, it's been over 30 hours, very, very little sleep. the decision that she made was just amazingly commendable, trying to allow Garrison to come in as nature would provide. But there comes a point where exhaustion sets in, you get tired, and at the core of making a natural childbirthing decision is what's best for my baby. At the core of birthing in a hospital and having to go through a cesarean, the way Maria and I got to that decision was do what's best for my baby. And that's what my wife ended up having to do, is come to the realization that 30 years ago, 50 years ago, you probably don't make it through this pregnancy. I lose my wife and I lose my baby.
Well, the reason, okay, so I'm laying on the table and you're not put to sleep when you get a cesarean. They just numb you with the epidural that they have already inside of you, and they just numb you with that. So I'm alert, but they gave me a lot because I can still feel a lot. So I'm starting to numb like up to my face. But I can hear the doctors talking and they're like, man, she's muscular. So I can feel the pressure. I can feel them pushing to get the baby out. I mean, 2 doctors are pushing my abdomen to get the baby out. And I didn't hear this, but my husband heard it, and he heard the phrase, true knot. Never even thought anything else of it. They pulled him out. The first thing my husband says to me is he has a head full of hair, and of course they don't want him to cry. There's a pediatrics team there to make sure that the meconium didn't get in his system. And
so they probably had 8 to 10 people in the room. 3 or 4 of those folks were just like NICU, respiratory folks. When babies are birthed, they take a big gulp of air. They when they come out. When a child has meconium and is present, you don't want them to take that big gulp because they'll actually suck in the stool and that creates some other issues for you. So that's why they had a lot of people, and fortunately Garrison didn't take that big gulp, but they were also prepared for that as well.
So they got him all cleaned up and everything was good. My husband got to hold him, I got to see him, the same stuff you would normally go through. So they cleaned me up, stitched me back up. Within 30 minutes, my son is nursing. He latched on beautifully. He was just really small. You know, we had been projected that I would have a smaller baby, but he was 5 pounds, 12 ounces. And I was projected to have 7 pound, 7 pound baby, where his length was like a normal baby. He was 20 inches long and he was just so little. So didn't even worry about it. I'm little, didn't worry about it. You know, he's healthy. There was nothing wrong with him. So it was just like, okay. So then we get checked in, well, not checked in, but we get moved to our room. And of course the doctors and nurses start doing their rounds, and a doctor comes in and was like, did they mention to you that he had a true knot? And I was like, no, they didn't say anything to me. And my husband was like, I remember in the operating room, the surgeon said he has a true knot.
I had no idea what that meant. My wife's open, she's arms falling asleep on the table and trying to hold her and trying to peek at Garrison as well as he's coming out. I thought true knot had to deal with stitches, or had no clue that it was with his umbilical cord.
He had a knot in his umbilical cord, and the reason he couldn't come down was because if he came down, he would have stopped his supply of oxygen, blood, and everything else. So when there's distress or there's a problem, definitely listen to yourself and go to the hospital. And I'm so grateful that we did, and I'm so grateful that he didn't come down. So we're projecting that around my 8th month, when he was super active, he was in there flipping around and got himself tied up in a knot. And he just, besides that, I would have had a normal, he probably would have been born on the 24th, but because he could not come down, it would stop him from living. He stayed up, and we were able to cut him out. And
yeah, the hospital, they don't take a lot of time describing to you what could have happened if he did drop and birth. So we're assuming that, hey, around that, somewhere in that 34th, 36th week, that, you know, he's tangling around, he's moving, active boy, and got a knot. In that last 4 weeks or so, babies grow like almost 1/3 to 1/2 pound a week. So if you add, you know, a couple pounds onto him, you know, he's 7 pounds, 12 ounces. But we are just incredibly blessed that all things considered, he came out healthy. We were able to leave the hospital in time, in 2 days. Was it stressful? Yes, it was stressful. I don't have a lot of hair to pull out, but there was a lot of prayers that went up around our family and for my wife. But birth is an amazing experience. You learn so much about your frailties, your strengths, about caring for someone, loving someone, sacrifice as well. And one thing I mentioned to my wife is, as honorable and noble as her decision was to have natural childbirth, you get a medal as a mom when you give birth, no matter how you get there. And we've learned that hospitals aren't horrible. There's a lot of great things that are there, but there's also a lot of great things that are in a birthing experience. But this has been just a tremendous experience for both of us. And I knew my wife was strong, and I knew her mom was strong, and thought I was strong as well. But man, she went through something that is just incredible. And one day I'll look forward to either my son being able to watch this video or being able to tell him and recount that story for him, so he knows the type of caliber that he comes from in his lineage.
Yes, I would say that I'm so very proud of Maria and Bo, which is Robert, but I'm so proud of them because of her integrity, her courage, all the things that she went through, the love for God, to show that Garrison chose some really awesome parents, and God made sure that he was here safe. Regardless of what anyone say, God looks after his children. And I'm so proud. I'm very proud of them, because it was very difficult to see your child, my daughter, go through that. But I must say, I am so honored that she made the right choice, her and her husband, to bring Garrison here. And God is so good all the time.
Go get him?
Yeah, let's go get him. You want to say hello to the world, Mr. Garrison Frank Loggins? He made it, guys. Isn't he beautiful and perfect? Yes. Alright, as always, thank you guys so much for taking out the time to watch my videos and to go through this whole pregnancy journey with me. There will be plenty of videos on motherhood and things that have helped me and things like that, of course. But I am going back to my regular schedule program of hair and makeup and fashion. Of course, we'll keep up the small talks, but thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.